Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. This episode is going to be a quick tip tactica where we look at a cheeky little tactic or combo that you can plug and play into your list. And today's installment is going to be all about tanks. Now, it's no secret that a lot of Guard players love, and I mean love, their metal boxes. If it can roll around on caterpillar tracks and shoot people with big guns, most Guard players are going to pick up one or three of them for their collection. But unfortunately, in a standard 2,000 point match play game, you can't always get as many tanks as you want. Once you have put in your infantry, your artillery, and your officers, there aren't many points left over. And if you decide to go all in on the tanks or go heavy on tanks, you find that you have to cut your capabilities. You have to chop points from other areas, which may leave your list with some weaknesses. For example, if you decide to cut down on infantry to get more tanks in, you may find that you're struggling on the primary objectives. And if you cut your artillery, then you might find that your opponent is going to hide lots of units behind lines like blocking terrain, and your tanks don't get to shoot what they want. And a very common situation that I find myself in and that I see when I am reviewing people's Guard lists on stream is that they tend to get 3 tanks that they really want into the list, and then the last one they kind of use it to try and pad out the armored core. You might have a Rogue Dawn and a couple of Lemus Exterminators, for example, and then someone chucks in a Hydra or a Hellhound. The problem with these cheap tanks is they often are cheap for a reason. They've got some downsides. For example, the Hydra might have the range, but it really struggles with volume with only 4 shots from its autocannon. It's not like an Exterminator where it gets rapid fire. It's just firing 4 Hydra autocannon shots. And the Hellhound, well, it's got a 2+ save, which is nice, but it's kind of swingy with that 2d6 on the shots, and it's pretty short range, which means it has to put itself in danger in order to get its job done. But what if I told you there was another way? What if I told you there was a tank that you could put into your army that had range and volume of fire and was also dirt cheap? Something that could flesh out your armored core whilst at the same time actually being effective.
Attention Guardsmen, the Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
If all of that sounds too good to be true, well, let me introduce you to the Harker-mobile. This tactic is brutally simple, and I can't believe I completely missed it. It was pointed out to me in a live stream, and ever since I have just been loving this idea. Take a Chimera and put Sergeant Harker inside it. That's it. It's such a simple idea, but the more that I think about it, the more I love it, the more genius that I think it is. Chimeras are a really good transport. They fire a lot of shots and they're decently tough with their 11 wounds. But the problem is you need to put something inside them. You can't run empty transports in 10th edition. The transport just gets destroyed, or I don't think you're even allowed to do it anymore. In previous editions, if a transport started with nothing inside, it just counts as being destroyed. But now I think the rules are written and say you just can't do it. This means that you end up wanting to try and fill the transport capacity. You're like, I'm going to take 10 infantry, put an officer in there. It's going to drive forward. It's going to shoot stuff. It's going to do objectives. There's going to be orders, all this stuff flying around. But actually, that's quite expensive. And you start undermining one of the best bits about the Chimera, which is it's super cheap. It's 70 points. And the more stuff you cram into it, the more points you're spending on it. And in some ways, the less efficient you're making it. But what if you could just take a cheap Chimera and give it more firepower? What if you could take something that is at its core a transport and turn it into a fighting vehicle? Well, Sergeant Harker is a really cheap way of doing that whilst actually adding value to the vehicle. You could take something like a Commissar, a cheap character, and put it inside a Chimera, absolutely. That Commissar's not adding anything for his 30 points. He's just stopping the Chimera from getting destroyed. You could put a Cyclops demolition vehicle in there, but you're going to have the same problem. You could put an infantry squad in there, but the problem with an infantry squad is it costs more points than Harker, 20 more points to be precise, and the guns that you want to shoot out the back of it aren't going to hit very well, because you could put like a las can in there or an autocan in there, but that's hitting on a 5. And considering your tank's probably going to be moving around, tanks often need to make sure they're getting those fire angles, you're going to be hitting on 5, so it's not actually likely to hit or do much. I've played with games with the mobile bunker Chimera, and I've played lots of games against it because Salty Simon loves putting his Steel Legion infantry squads inside Chimeras, and every single time it's just done nothing. That last guy just fires one shot off and just misses. But you could put Harker inside, who hits on a 3+ natively and is bringing firepower. He's a little bit more points than a Commissar, significantly more points than a infantry squad, and yet is adding actual firepower. He's adding 3 more heavy bolter shots that hit a ballistic skill 3+. And Harker's weapon complements and works with the existing loadout of the vehicle, because your Chimera is going to have 2 heavy bolters and a heavy stubber and the las gun rates. It's already focused on dealing with infantry, so adding Harker in there just gives you an extra heavy bolter, but that heavy bolter is actually hitting good. You don't need to try and stay still to make it hit better. You don't need to give it a tank order, one of your viable tank orders from Lord Sol Leontus or a tank commander. No, the Chimera itself is going to have volume, because it's got the double heavy bolter with sustained hits, and you've got the heavy stubber with its rapid fire range, and the las gun. It's got the volume, and you're just adding more of the same onto it. So you're creating a specialized anti-infantry Dakka tank. But in addition to the firepower, the Harker-mobile has a couple of other extra benefits. These are really just little bonuses. The main thing that we like about it is it just brings a lot of heavy bolter firepower to the table. But Harker can order infantry. You can only order Kashtan jungle fighters though. But if you're running a bunch of Kashtans as screening units and you want to scout move them forward and then move them and advance them and everything, then the Harker-mobile can help you with that. It's an extra cheeky order to have in the bank. There's nothing stopping Harker from using the mobile command vehicle ability, so he can do an order. It is only going to be on certain units, but it's nice to have that in the back pocket. Like I said, it's not a huge bonus, it's just a little extra thing he can do. But he can also scout move. It makes your Chimera into a scout mirror. He has a 6-inch scout move. He's the only one inside the transport, so he can scout move forward. This could be quite important. Movement wins games. And you could take your little cheap Dakka tank, very disposable, very throwawayable, and you could scout move up a flank, and then you could move it, and you might get the angle on some enemy infantry that your opponent thought was hiding behind some laser blocking terrain. There are lots of little cheap units that can infiltrate forward. There are lots of little units that can scout move forward, try and go into objectives and stuff, and their main protection is that they're small, so they hide, so you can't see them. Well, if you've got a scout mirror, you might just be able to get the angle on them and pick them up. You've got little things like some Eldar Rangers, or you've got things like enemy rattling snipers. You don't see them very often, but it's just an example of a small unit that can infiltrate forward. You've got things like Von Ryan Leapers. That's a pretty good target for Scout Mirror to start working on. And the Von Ryan's Leapers can't do much back at the Chimera. They can't really damage it. Timidity doesn't really kill vehicles in combat. But your Dakka tank can happily sit there just hosing them down, just spraying them off an objective and stopping them from messing you up and ambushing you because you can't see them. Of course, you do have artillery that can do very similar things, target things out of line of sight and that good stuff, but there's nothing wrong with having more ways of getting angles on your opponent. There's nothing wrong with having a unit that has a cheeky scout move in the back pocket. And it's not just for doing damage. You might find that there's you pull your cards and you see that, oh man, I need to get that objective that's out in no man's land, I need to extend my battle lines. Well, you could scout move that viable 10-man Kazakin unit onto it, could drive forward an expensive unit inside a Chimera, maybe a big infantry squad or something, but you're not gonna be able to hold that objective next turn anyway. So what's going to happen is you're going to lose the Chimera, lose the unit inside, and feel like you might have to spend 2 CP on reinforcements to bring them back. Or you just put the Harker-mobile forward. It goes forward. It does the objective. Even if it dies, that's not the end of the world. Because Harker might live. He might, his little one-man unit, he might be able to pop out behind a little L-shaped ruin in the middle of the board from his Chimera. Or if he dies, well, he dies. It didn't matter. You just spent a cheap unit to get secondary points, which is something you always want to be doing in 40k because points win you the game. But if I'm being brutally honest, these are just extra backup ways of using the tank. The main way you want to be looking at this, the main thing you want to keep at the back of your mind is this is a long-range anti-infantry vehicle. And that's the number one role it's going to be fulfilling on the battlefield. But let's be clear, this isn't a wonder weapon. This isn't going to suddenly win you games left, right, and center. It's another tool to have in your toolbox. It's another way of getting cheap armor into your list. If you're someone that has been using Hydras, but you've just found that the volume of fire sometimes lets you down. If you haven't got a spare tank order to help it hit on 3s and it's only got 4 shots, sometimes they just go wild. And I want to be clear, I do like the Hydra. I think it's a good vehicle. It's 95 points, which is dirt cheap, but it does sometimes struggle with volume. And if you're someone who's been using the Hellhound and you found, well, it's not that cheap, 125 points is okay, but starting to get close to like a Leaving Rush Vanquisher, right? But if it's a bit cheaper, but the problem I find is whenever I roll the dice for it, sure, auto hits, but I'm getting like a 1 and a 2. I'm just not getting the reliability that I need from it. Consider the Harker tank. It's not perfect. It has its own disadvantages. It's in a meta of vehicles and monsters. Those heavy bolters just might not get the job done. It's not a force multiplier, really. Like I said, you've got that one order you can do a catch and jungle fights, but it's not really a force multiplier like the Hellhound. And it's not the cheapest option like the Hydra, but it's another tool to have in your toolbox. If you are getting to the end of your list and you're like, damn, I've got like 110, 115 points left, what can I put in here to get a bit more armor? And if you're like, well, I can't quite fit in 2 Sentinels, or I'm not sure that 2 Sentinels are really going to bring that much to the table, or if you're like, well, I can fit in like 1 Sentinel and like a Commissar or something, rather than taking those units that aren't going to add a huge amount, rather than just padding your list out for the sake of padding it out, things like these cheap armored vehicles like your Hellhound, your Hydra, and your Harker-mobile are great ways of adding units that will actually add something, actually contribute, whilst also filling up those points. Well, at least that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Are you convinced by the Harker-mobile, or do you think that there are much better ways of using your Chimera and much more effective ways of getting cheap armor into your list? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.